It is time for issue 2 of Justice League versus Tiny Titans. This is a really good mini-series by Devin, Grayson, and Phil James. If one side wins, everybody loses. Except the bloody reader, because this is brilliant. The cover also reflects one of the big conflicts, I would say the biggest maybe, which is Batman and Nightbird. The cover also has a bunch of other Batman-related characters surrounding them, like Robert and Flamewing and Mockingbird. What I'm trying to say is this almost works as a cover, but when I do the final issue, I will bitch about these covers, but for the time being, let's just dig into this wonderful comic. We got the Justice League here, and Onion, he is really fun in this story. He's just always yelling. This Justice League team is the Van Morrison iteration. If you want to know who is who, go back and watch the first video. Our plot is that Sideburns from the Tiny Titans, he has returned to Earth, and he is a big cybernetic planetary mass thing that absorbs all technology and adds it to himself. He has assimilated both the Justice League satellite headquarters and the entire moon. So the Justice League, they are like, we have got to stop this from destroying Earth. But on the other side, we have the Tiny Titans. Sideburns has collected every member of the team, and he has placed them in the virtual realities, which are meant to be like their dream worlds, their fantasies, stuff like that. But the Flask, Willie West, Nightbird, Dick Grayskull, and Emo Girl, and Shrek Boy, they broke free. And out here, we get the backstory on Sideburns, and how he wound up like this. He started off as just regular hard Sideburns, but as you can see, he kept adding more machine parts to him, and then eventually he became all machine, and then a big machine planet. And our Tiny Titans, they see Sideburns as their friend who needs help, whereas the Justice League, they are concerned about his actions and think that he needs stopping, i.e. killing, aka shutting down, because he is a machine, so it's not exactly killing. So the Tiny Titans, they got into the other Tiny Titans' fantasy worlds to wake them up. We have got Flamewing up here. She is dreaming about beating a bunch of Roberts at tennis. Then we have got Geodudette, complicated character from what I understand, so I didn't quite get what her fantasy is about. And we have got the rest. I'm not going to go through them all, it would take ages. But our here Superman, he points out that only recently he stopped being Electric Superman. I was not lying in part 1 when I said if this came out a few months sooner, Superman would still be electric. Right now, the Justice League, they are trying to free the captive Tiny Titans. And one thing that this does really well is Batman. Batman is always written dreadfully whenever he guest stars in Summit. He is either an idiot or a dick. And in this, he is written really well. On the surface and at points, you think maybe he is being written terribly, but the big payoff is that, no, he is being written really well. He doesn't condescend Nightbird, he's always concerned about Nightbird. He respects Nightbird's opinion and experience, and he doesn't just punch him because he is being difficult. Batman being written well is just another thing that this series nails. We have got some more fantasies here. Bart Simpson's Flask, and our here is Pratt's son. His fantasy has been with his dad on the Justice Society of Superheroes. It is kind of nice that eventually he does end up having half of that come true. Our hero, Donatello, she has a pretty heartbreaking one. In her fantasy reality, she is reunited with her dead son. One thing is, we didn't get an insight into every character with these little virtual reality bits, but it would get tiresome and they're not really needed. I think we got more than we were expecting. The other major pair in the conflict after Batman and Nightbird is Green Lanterns and the Flask. And I really like this. I think it is clever. Both Kyle Reese and Willie West, they were members of the Justice League at this point, and both of them had history as members of the Tiny Titans. Willie more so than Kyle, but they are good friends. They're like pals who are on the Justice League, and now this big debate is going to tear them apart and put them on different sides. Because you see, Kyle Reese, he sides with the Justice League in the belief that Sideburns needs dealing with. Him and Atom Man, they are the only Tiny Titans who align with the Justice League. I did always think that was a bit odd. You would think in a debate like this, it wouldn't be so clearly divided between two teams. Like maybe Supergirl would actually agree with the Justice League, or Superman and Wonder Woman would agree with the Tiny Titans. But here we go, Tiny Titans on the left, Justice League on the right. This page is a homage to the unpublished Gary Conman, creator of The Punisher, and Jorge Perez, Avengers vs. Justice League from 1982. About 5 pages of that were done before it got squashed. And this image, or rather the basis of this image, it is the most well-known artifact from that unreleased and never finished comic. So now it is fighting time. The Tiny Titans versus the Justice League. The Tiny Titans, they dramatically outnumber the Justice League. I think there's exactly double the amount of Titans to the members of the Justice League. Batman and Nightbird, they begin their back and forth down here. And while we have these entertaining little battles, Sideburns, he comes to the conclusion that he needs to recruit more allies. I didn't know why. As I just said, the Tiny Titans, they already outnumber the Justice League. But at this end, you get some part-time members of the Tiny Titans and some former allies, which means we get these lovely little Andy Book style identification cards for these two characters who I have never heard of. They agree to help, and when everyone fights, we have Sideburns recruiting more help at the bottom, most of which I have never heard of, like this fella here. But our here, this woman, Anata Magneta, she was a member of the Tiny Titans. She used to gang out with Willie West. I have an issue with her in, so I'll review that next to prove that I know who Magneta is. Also, if you are up for a Supergirl versus Archangel fight, well, there is a good one right there. I know people are probably more keen for me to point out all the fighting, but I am obsessed with these little Andy Book stuff. We have got Joker's daughter out here. Although my copy, the crop isn't quite right and it cuts off some of her name. But Joker's daughter, she is the member of the Tiny Titans that always gets ignored or overlooked because she was kinda retconned out of history. But she was a member in the mid-70s and I read some of those issues because there was a trade paperback in Durham Library that was themed all around this stupid character. She is a terrible character. Like, the new 52 version of her is terrible, but the original version, this version, is just as terrible. She was maybe, her and Willow at Marvel, they might be the first examples of proper creators' pets in comics. She was introduced as a baddie for Robert, and it quickly became the case that she was always outsmarting him, and he was infatuated with her for no discernible reason. Then her creator was writing Tiny Titans and had her show up, and immediately Robert, he wanted her to join the team, and then Red Arrow and Willie West, they were all fancying her too. It really was terrible. She's fine and not really used in this, but it's nice that Devin, Grayson, Maya and Phil James bothered to bring her in despite the retcon that she was never a real member. And Nightbird and Batman, they are having a long conversation about this rather than just fighting. You know, I am a fan of that. And down here we have got Deathstroke, who has at times helped the Tiny Titans. He refuses to come and help them now. And our here is Robert, the John Blake version. Him and Superboy get summoned by Sideburns. This is because the Jason Donovan version of Robert, he was an ally to the team, but he is dead. So John Blake was seen as an appropriate replacement. And at the time, he just happened to be with Superboy. So Superboy ends up getting brought along too. And Batman and Nightbird, they have come to an agreed decision because Batman trusts Nightbird. See, good writing of Batman isn't hard to do. And here is a bunch of dead children across the bottom. So Nightbird, he assembles the original Tiny Titans to try and go and solve things. But Shrek Boy, he sneaks away with them. And we end with some blueprints for the various HQs that the Tiny Titans have used over the years. If you are a big Tiny Titans fan, or even if you have never read the Tiny Titans before, this is a brilliant series to get you involved and engaged and aware of these characters. We have so much fun fighting in this. We have really good characterization, some perfect continuity, and this is just so great. This is what I want out of comics, really. This is a perfect mini-series. You cannot really do much better with the Tiny Titans. I'm giving it a 7 thumbs up.